Our next lesson is personality type, introduction to the Myers-Briggs, and I'm going to give an overview of the Myers-Briggs type indicator, MBTI structure. So we're going to find out what personality type is. I'm going to give you an opportunity to do an experiential exercise. Won't take but a minute, so you can see what your hypothesis is about what type you are if you don't already know. And then I'm going to go through and introduce the model that backs up the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Now, I want to say a couple of things here. We're going to go into more detail than you as a practitioner need, but I think you're going to find this detail very useful because it will give you an idea about how powerful the Myers-Briggs is for self-understanding and for understanding others. It's the most frequently used personality self-assessment in the world. It's way more than 16 types, and it describes an infinite number of possible types with various nuances that are there. We're also going to explore temperament, which is a shorthand. Since it's 4 instead of the full 16, temperament is a shorthand for type. And I just want to note that the Myers-Briggs is given to more than 2 million people every year globally. So this structure that we're going to talk about, this assessment that we're going to talk about, is really the standard of practice in the field. Let's start this lesson with an exercise, and let's see if you can hypothesize what personality type you might actually be from 4 quick questions. There's no right or wrong answer. Just pick the one that if you were left to your own devices, if there were no pressure for you to do something you didn't want to do, identify what you would prefer to do just for you. So the first one is this. After a long day at a conference and lots of talking, and in the hour before dinner, what would you prefer to do? To spend some time alone or to meet with others before dinner? Just make a note, one or the other. Number 2, when getting data to support a decision, I prefer, here's the first one, to gather all relevant past and present verifiable data, or to consider how all the data fits into the larger scheme of things. Number 3, when making a decision, I prefer, first choice, to apply the established rules. Second choice, to consider how my decision will affect the team. And number 4, the last one, when I'm taking action, I prefer, first option, to get things done as soon as possible. I love checking things off my list. Or the second option, to take plenty of time to consider the full range of facts and possibilities. And I do tend to start just in time to make the deadline. So you have your choices? Okay. Let's go back and see what type you might be. So if you chose for number 1 to spend some time alone, you might be an introvert. If, on the other hand, you chose to meet with others before dinner, you might be an extrovert. For number 2, in terms of getting data to support a decision, if you like to gather all the relevant past and present verifiable data, you might be an S for sensing. And on the other hand, if you prefer to consider how the data fits into the larger scheme of things, you might be an N for intuition. Number 3 was about making decisions. So if your preference is to apply the established rules, you might be a thinking type decision maker. And on the contrary, if you prefer to consider how your decision will affect the team, you might be a feeling type decision maker. And the last preference about taking action is if you like to get things done as soon as possible, work a plan, love checking things off your list, you just might be a J or a judging type. On the other hand, if you prefer to take plenty of time to consider the full range of facts and possibilities, and honestly, you do tend to start just in time to make the deadline, then you might be a P or a perceiving type. Note down what you have as your hypothesis, and we'll check in with you later to see how well your hypothesis tests out when you take the Myers-Briggs. So let's talk just for a minute about how we develop personality type. First, as we've said, it's a combination of your genetic inheritance, like handedness, whether you're right or left-handed. So it's a preference and it's a trait. Now, the expression of that trait comes about and is strongly influenced by life experiences, culture, etc. The life cycle, at least pursuant to the Myers-Briggs theories, are that your early childhood to young adulthood is when you develop your personality. And young adulthood to midlife is when flexibility develops, where you begin to be able to flex out of introvert to extrovert or N to S, etc. And that post midlife, if you're mature, that you've become, if you pardon the mixed metaphor, ambidextrous, where you can basically move back and forth between the preferences from a behavioral standpoint with ease. Let's consider an example of why you might work against your preference. So say you were born right-handed. Why might you catch a ball with your left hand? Well, first, it might be the situation. It was simply easier for you to use your left hand. The ball was closer to it. It could be your environment. Maybe you were working on left-handed catching with your team. And it could also be cultural norms and expectations. Our personalities are expressed within those cultural norms. And if everyone else is left-handed, you might function to fit in as if you were left-handed, even though it's against your preference. Now, I want to give a big red user alert here. Flexing out of your preference requires intentional action. You need to do it with intent. And you're no longer on autopilot, so you have to think about it a little bit more. And flexing out of preference uses energy. And remember, we do this all the time. More on that later.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying this free lesson from the University of Maryland's Project Management Center for Excellence. If you want to check out more lessons just like this one, click the link in the description below where you'll be able to go to our website on executive project management. There, you can find edX courses, professional short courses where you can learn from an instructor like me, as well as request custom team training for you and your organization. All right, let's get back to the lesson and I'll see you at the end.
As I was putting together this next couple of pieces of this lesson, I was concerned that you might be overwhelmed with all this detail. So let me just own that. What you want to get out of this is an idea of what's possible using Myers-Briggs. We're not going to stay at this level of detail through the entire course because it would be way more than you need to know. But I think it's really useful for you to know what it could do in case you want to pursue a deeper interest in it, or you have an opportunity to use it where you might need a Myers-Briggs practitioner. So look at this from the standpoint of understanding capabilities, but don't get mired in the details quite yet. So Myers-Briggs is structured at the first level into 16 types, and it's defined by 4 preference pairs. There are 2 preference pairs that deal with functions that are processes that are critical to your daily life. One is data gathering, and you're either an S for sensing or an N for intuitive, and making decisions, where you're either a T for thinking or an F for feeling. And 2 attitudes or orientations. And these orientations are to where you get and focus your energy. Extroverts, the E's, get their energy externally. Introverts, I, focus on an internal world. And your orientation to the outside world. J's are judging. P's are perceiving. And this is what the Myers-Briggs type table looks like with all 16 types. Let's go a little bit deeper into the structure of the Myers-Briggs. We're going to go down to what's called level 2. Underlying each preference pair, we're going to use extroversion and introversion as our example, are 5 facets And they're the significant elements that make up, in this case, either extroversion or introversion. And those facets are on a continuum as well. So it's across a range. So it may be from initiating to receiving, expressive to contained, gregarious to intimate, active to reflective, enthusiastic to quiet. And it's reported in 3 zones. The first zone is where it's in preference. The second zone is where it's out of preference. And the third zone is where it's in the middle. It's not clearly one, extroversion in this case, or introversion. Now, I want to show you that it provides unlimited differentiation among individuals. So I've now added the red vertical bars, and they show you what possible results might look like. So in this case, someone is an extrovert, but they're actually mid-zone between expressive and contained, and they're actually out of preference. They're more like an introvert on the facet that runs between gregarious and intimate. Okay, so I probably have proven that MBTI can be pretty complicated if you get into all the possibilities. But trust me, it works and it's worth your time and investment. However, there is a shorthand available while you get the hang of all the details, either at level 1 or level 2 if you're really interested. And we're going to take a quick look at that right now. The shorthand is called the temperaments, and we're going to use this when we get to type watching later on in the course. Temperament theory is separate from type theory, but very similar. It is, however, very much like the 4 humors that the Greeks used in describing personality those many years ago. The temperaments describe core needs, core values, and core talents, and there are 4 temperaments: SJ, the guardian, SP, the artisan, NF, the idealist, and NT, the rational. This shorthand gives us a way to make some predictions without having to be Myers-Briggs gurus. Are you curious? Would you like to learn more? If you would, I recommend these 2 books, and you can find them at any bookstore or online. One is Type Talk, and the other is Type Talk at Work. They have profiles of each type in great detail. Happy reading.
Hey there, did you enjoy that lesson as much as I did? If you did, go ahead and give us a like. If you want to see another one, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, put them below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Moreover, is there somebody in your life who really needs this lesson right now? If so, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Now, we look forward to seeing you in the next lesson where you can learn even more from the University of Maryland Project Management Center for Excellence. Thanks so much.